Utah, a sanctuary state. Governor Cox also cites a memo that Bernanke's office issued a memo calling Utah a sanctuary state.
First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before.
Utah, a sanctuary state.
But provide sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals, many from prisons and mental institutions that have illegally entered our country from all over the world.
Utah, a sanctuary state.
We are into it. First of all, we are going to end all sanctuary cities.
Utah, a sanctuary state.
Well, the Trump administration recently announced federal immigration officers can now arrest people in churches and schools.
Utah, a sanctuary state. Utah, a sanctuary state.
Hello and thank you for joining us. On the eve of his 100th day in office, President Trump is putting a heavy focus on immigration. The president is signing 2 executive orders Monday, one focused on the role of U.S. law enforcement and another targeting so-called sanctuary cities.
Utah, a sanctuary state.
Let me just ask you,
Sure.
the Utah Compact, do you still support it?
I do. Yeah, I believe in the Utah Compact. I believe in the reasons behind it, and I believe in the message and the importance of all of it. Sometimes people just focus on the last part of the compact and not the first part of the compact, and I think it's important to focus on both of those. And the first part of the compact talks about law and order and the importance of supporting those who are entrusted with enforcing the laws of the land. There's this important piece about who is responsible for immigration policy and immigration law, and the Constitution is very clear that that's at the federal government. Now, sadly, the federal government has not done its job for now moving close to 40 years. I mean, really, since Ronald Reagan was president, we haven't had major reform in the immigration space. And so now we have the federal government who wasn't doing their job and now is trying to do their job, but it's really tough to get this one right, and we've made a mess of it in our country. You'll remember that coming out of the compact, Utah passed comprehensive immigration reform. Sadly, President Obama wouldn't allow us to implement it, and then President Trump wouldn't allow us to implement it. So
Utah, a sanctuary state. Utah, a sanctuary state. Utah, a sanctuary state.
Travis Wayne Goodsell, Trump Eyes 2025. Mosiah 24, starting in verse 2. For the Lamanites had taken possession of all the lands that were listed above, and thus they expanded their territory. Therefore the king of the Lamanites had appointed tributary kings, is what it's being said here, over all these lands. They were not independent kings, they were subject to the king of the Lamanites, thus tributary kings. And then it says that the name of the king was Laman, because he's a descendant of Laman, just like Nephi, descendants of Nephi. And he appointed teachers of the brethren of Amulon. Those were the priests of King Noah. And as the the Lamanite king had come in and destroyed King Noah and the people of Nephi for having murdered, burned Abinadi, and thus King Noah was in like manner burned by the prophecy of Abinadi through the Jewish law of Purim, and the law of the Jews, Deuteronomy 19, verse 19. And so, yeah, these priests of Amulon were now made teachers and were spread out throughout the land. So you've got 11 of them. Alma Judas was not among them. Well, yeah, he was. He's been held captive. Amulon found him and enslaved him and his people, believing in the Jewish Book of Mormon. And so, yeah, they put the Christian Book of Mormon in all of the public school systems of the Lamanites. And thus the language of Nephi began to be taught among all the people of the Lamanites. See the way they worded that? Hilarious. And they were friendly one with another. Nevertheless, they knew not the Jewish God. They believed in the Great Spirit of Christianity. Neither did the brethren of Amulon teach them anything concerning the Lord their God. neither the law of Moses. Remember, they were interrogating Abinadi about the law of Moses, and Abinadi just ripped him a new one and said, "Why do you claim to teach these people and you don't even know the law, let alone the scriptures?" Neither did they teach them the words of Abinadi, as Alma did in the waters of Mormon. And now they begin to keep records, writing to one another on social media. And thus the Lamanites began to increase in riches and began to trade one with another and wax great and began to be cunning and a wise serpent people. They're lizard people from Kolob, as to the wisdom of the world. Yea, very cunning people, delighting in all manner of wickedness and plunder, except it were among their own brethren. Which, hello, scriptwriter. This is where they are. This is what they're talking about. Now it came to pass that Amulon began to exercise authority over Alma and his brethren, and began to persecute them, caused that his children should persecute their children. You can leave the church, but the church will never leave you alone. Right, Mormons, who try to twist that to say, you can leave the church, but you'll never leave the church alone. We left the church, thus we left it alone. It's you who cannot leave us alone when we leave. You just play stupid so that you can bully us like a Lamanite. So this is kind of important to understand in the context of today under Trump 2.0, the second coming. Trump has made it very clear that he wanted to remove everyone except for those who are rich and well off the white master race. It was very clear in his first term. You know, the Muslim ban, all blacks going back to the bleep hole country where they didn't come from, Obama coming from Kenya, shutting down the border, building the wall. It was very clear, very obvious what Trump's agenda was as president. Human trafficking the little children to place them into good, rich, white Christian homes for human trafficking. Very plain, pure, and precious. And Utah was all on board with Trump's agenda. They knew, and they voted for him, and he was president. And so for a state to be dominantly MAGA, as Governor Cox would take over the governorship and say, let something about during the drought, make grass green again. Thinking he was being funny, but he was Is that the refrigerator, or is that outside? That is weird. Weird. And so then the 2020 election came. Oaks would get leaked to me 4 years later that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints purposely had Trump lose that election so that Biden would be president, so that Trump would cause the insurrection on January 6th. And I wish I would have known that, but nonetheless, I still was able to help save America as best I could with the opposition that I have against me to submit the Insurrection Act against the church, which was then used on those on January 6th, for which Trump then pardoned. But at least they'll never know who was responsible for putting them in prison. Because the church doesn't want anybody to know. If I get leaked, the church gets leaked. Kind of a conundrum. And so then our rights are destroyed under Biden as SCOTUS overthrows the rights of women to promote sperm. Sperm lives matter. Sorry, women. Only as sperm do you have rights. But once one of your eggs has a sperm, you no longer have rights. They're gone instantly. And then other abominations by SCOTUS, Biden refusing to do his job as president, as the border was intentionally made a crisis. I have not been hearing this noise. This is the first time. And so then the election for 2024. And again, Utah posing with the banner, Utah is gay for Trump. Trump for President 2.0. Hail Jesus, giving him palm branches for his coming into New America, Gulf of America. And then they knew Trump's first term. They knew that he was talking about this in interviews, rallies, where he was wounded in the White House of his friends. It's supposed to be hands and feet, not ear. And then his ear was miraculously healed. The power of Donald Jesus Trump. And not a red flag operation whatsoever. None whatsoever. I see the guy, he's been blamed. So he's obviously guilty. Guilty until he proves himself innocent. Oh, he's dead. What a shame. So now we can just blame him for all kinds of stuff. He killed JFK, by the way. He was Mormon. I swear I saw that in the church news. I saw his family in the church news. They were talking about Mormons in that area, and I can't remember what it was about to find it, but I saw him. But anyway, and so now Trump is doing exactly what he signed as an executive order on day one and had been doing ever since. Exactly what we all knew he was going to do. And now all of a sudden MAGA is like, what the hell? What are you doing? What are you doing? This isn't what we wanted you to do. Why is everybody playing dumb on MAGA's side? Trump is doing exactly what he told you he was going to do. He told you, Project 2025. He knows nothing of it. He takes pictures with lots of projects. Talk to his lawyer. We know him. We know his patterns. We know his manner of language. He is illiterate, and so when he says stuff, he's giving an order as a mob boss to make sure it gets done, so that he doesn't have to pull out his Sharpie and change the course of a tornado or a hurricane and then say he's going to nuke them. You didn't listen or believe Michael Cohen, his fixer. See, the church doesn't have lawyers, they have fixers at Kirtland McConkie. They are fixers. They are not legal lawyers, even though they got a legal degree and passed the bar, but they need to be pulled from the bar, lose their license, and go to prison with the church for threatening federal judges and others. Nevertheless, Utah all of a sudden is getting exposed. I did find that there were 2 other times last year before this year when, again, ICE was talking about it. ICE has been telling us the whole time Utah is a sanctuary state. So Utah, promoting Trump for president, knew full well that Trump was getting rid of everybody but rich white people. And Utah knew they were a sanctuary state. And yet, ICE was warning that Utah is only pretending to side with Trump, to vote him in, but are not having any interest to follow Trump. They're wanting to run the state of Utah independently. Because Oaks got leaked. And I've been doing the videos because I knew from reading and studying the Book of Mormon. 3rd Nephi, chapter 7. Now behold, I show unto you that they did not establish a king over the land, but in the same year, yea, the 30th year, they did destroy upon the judgment seat, yea, did murder the chief judge of the land. The people were divided one against another, and they did cause a national divorce. Separated into nation states. So this is exactly what Trump is doing. Destroying the federal government, stopping all funding of federal projects, shutting down all projects, shutting down the agencies, and people are crying, no! We only wanted you to attack the deep state. It's kind of important to be able to understand and comprehend English. Kind of important not to ignore history, because Trump's repeating it. It's just so frustrating that people want to play dumb and play victim against their Lord and Master Trump. All states knew that when Trump was declared the winner of AI 2024, been just as easy to have YouTube's AI do the vote count. Because they do so well with my subscriber numbers. What are you complaining about, Travis? You're popular. Not according to view counts. And so every state in the union knew once Trump was the winner. They knew what they needed to therefore do to prepare when Trump took over. And nobody did. They knew they needed to set up their state to be a sovereign tributary state. To independently have their own corporations and to have trade among the states, to have their own laws, to have their own policies, that they needed to independently remove DEI and all those who are not the white master race of wealth. They knew this. Now, obviously, the deep state Dem states are going to resist. So Trump, yeah, military. First time ever in America. I think there could have been some incidences, but I don't know if an actual military was brought in. You know, Civil War, you know, but nonetheless. And so, again, the ICE director in Utah had a memo leaked again saying that Utah is a sanctuary state and that his hands are tied. He's not allowed to do his job under Trump. And Governor Cox steps in. He's got an insider in the Trump administration, and he's been able to keep Utah from obeying the laws of Trump, to violate Article of Faith number 12. We believe in being subject to kings, presidents, rulers, and magistrates, and obeying, honoring, and sustaining the law. State of Utah is disobeying Article of Faith number 12. And and so other states are getting invaded by ICE. Other states are losing their funding, losing programs, getting people laid off from jobs, federal jobs disappearing, and Utah is suffering from that. You know, they only have a couple of people. The majority of the federal officers in Utah are at the national parks. And they don't want the feds in Utah unless they're Mormon and defend the church from criminal prosecution. And so, yeah, pressure is ramping up. As a BYU student lost his visa. And then that was the final straw for Cox. And he went to his insider in the Trump administration and got it reversed. The BYU student, not the others in Utah, gets to stay and not be deported to El Salvador. With Sesame Street. Sunny days in El Salvador. They do have a Spanish Sesame Street. I'm not sure which dialect of Spanish they have, whether it's a Portuguese, Mexican, Spanish. I'm not up on that. But nonetheless, it's a Latin-based language. And so now that Trump is in full swing and has now signed an executive order targeting sanctuary states, not just cities. You're welcome, Utah. Despite the insider, I'm sort of getting through. Sort of. And so now Utah is talking about the Utah Compact. Governor Cox was interviewed talking about how Trump is violating Utah Compact. But this is the context in which you need to understand it in. That the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the enemy. That are intentionally behind the coup of the government to destroy the federal government. The regulations of the government were destroyed because of the secret combinations of the friends and kindreds of those who murdered Joseph Smith and Hiram. They did destroy the government of the land. This is the whole plot of the Danites. Oaks got leaked. And for Mormons to be upset with me means that they're the enemy. To be offended with the Book of Mormon for being true, Mormons are beyond hypocrites. They are the enemy. They are revising the Book of Mormon and what it actually is warning America about and the rest of the world. That these Lamanites intend to be Lamanites. Danites, Lamanites, same thing. And so the Utah Compact was to grant, it's worded as a dialogue, which is crap. It's political speak for, we're not going to do anything, we're just going to pacify you and get you away from protesting. And we're going to do make-work jobs of committees to discuss and never do anything about it. That's what discussion means. Dialogue means. And we've seen this since, especially since Trump's first term and into Biden. The deep state Dems were always talking about, we need a discussion about rights. Really? Just a discussion? You don't actually want rights? You want to feel good, not actually be good. It's just so sick and wrong how psychologists have screwed up the minds of the people to thank their American liberators of World War II Nazi Germany. Nobody wants to learn from history, so here we are. Nazi Germany 2.0 in America under 2.0 Donald Trump. And it's just hilarious that he's going after psychologists, but not actually saying psychologists. This is what people don't understand. They didn't listen to the fixer of Trump. Michael Cohen knows Trump. He knows what he says. He's the fixer. He knows. He understands what Trump wants. And so when Trump gets up at his inauguration speech and issues the executive order of the southern border getting shut down and the military being sent there, he calls them murderers, rapists, terrorists, gangsters, and mentally retarded. And everybody's going, what? What? You're not getting it. Trump gets it. You need to understand what he means. Trump is illiterate. He's been trying to learn English since becoming president the first time. But what he's talking about is DEI and LGBTQIAPO+, and blacks and immigrants are getting psychological help. That's what he's referring to. That psychologists are coming in, preying upon the weak and the vulnerable. My psychologist said I can take drugs. Did you see that video? Is anybody watching my videos anymore? You come to one and you have no clue what I'm talking about. You don't even bother to check that the actual number of videos that I have, because I can verify them. On the, is it 10 or 15 terabytes? No, dear God. And there's a whole bunch of sealed portion videos. Thanks to the Mormon YouTube employee down in Utah County who had a power outage to expose his location and then had an earthquake to be punished for what he's done to me. And so, but yeah, this is what nobody sees. And as the deep state Dem and the various states with their attorney generals and their governors all battling against Trump through the court systems, as judges are denying Trump to do his agenda, as states are resisting, not wanting to hand over their people, Utah likewise, wanting the church to continue the human trafficking of immigrants and migrants. It's seeming as if Trump is backing down. So the stock market is getting pumped up again after the church obtained $10 trillion, $10 trillion, $10 trillion, $10 trillion, $10 trillion, $10 trillion. And Nelson had to come out and tuck his tail between his legs and set his pitchfork down. Baby name meaning. Why are you resisting this? Baby name meaning. Russell Marion. Come on, people. Have to do everything for you because you're lazy learners and lax disciples. And you don't see what Trump is setting up. Because Nelson's not going to tell you. Oaks isn't going to tell you. And they should. Amos 3:7, surely the Aten of Yahweh will do nothing, save he shall revealeth his secrets unto his servants of the prophets. Every Mormon knows that scripture. What? Aten of Yahweh? What the hell is that, Travis? God. I have a scripture study video for you guys. It's coming up. Coming up. So, yeah, I was hoping on Friday to take the rest of the weekend off, did a 12-minute Trump ice video yesterday. And then church news last night. Come on, women. Seriously? Do you not see what they're doing to you? And yet, I'm the guy trying to save your lives, and you all want me dead. You're mean! You have to validate our feelings. No, I don't. Psychologists told you to say that. You are their puppet masters. And so when you get the church leaders abusing you, at women's conference nonetheless, God, it's just sick and wrong. What's wrong with you women? Come on. I just want one cuddle buddy. And I can't, because you're enslaved to the brainwashing of the church. Oh, God. And so, pay attention to the bigger picture of what's going on. Trump sends in the military. He is gutting all of the agencies, but keeping the militant groups intact. Homeland Security, ICE, trying to put guns in the IRS agents. And then he just came out with his budget proposal, which is over $1 trillion for the military. He's gutted the federal government. And so instead of cutting back on government spending, nope, he just took all that money and have moved it to the military. But we're not done. He arrested a judge for not deporting one of his people on his list. Trump's bucket list of deportees. He arrested her, removed her from the bench. He's declared the 1798 or whatever enemy combatants list, or act, for those who are immigrants. And judges are saying, no, you're not allowed. And all of this under the guise of his birthday. He's now announcing for June 14th, not to be confused with June 19th, Trump wants a military parade for his birthday. Do you see how Trump is focused on military, building up his military? Anybody remember in the first term where he talked about Little Rocket Man and wanting our nuclear weaponry increased 1 billion-fold? We need more. No, you forgot, huh? You weren't paying attention to your Lord and Master. It's like Mormons. It's been a month. I expect to find out that Mormons are going to be disappointed. Nelson no longer knows when Jesus is coming. Oh no! I just found out. Oh, Travis knew the whole time. Trump is setting up for martial law in America. He's setting up for the Insurrection Act in America. He's setting up for civil war in America. He's only pretending to back down, to release the tariffs, to let the stocks pump back up. And I've gone over this with you, and you don't want to believe that the scriptures are true. You claim to be Mormon, and you don't believe. And I just, God. Joseph Smith prophesied, "The enemy came by night and broke down the hedge, and the servants of the noblemen, aka the 15 prophets of Amulon, arose and were affrighted and fled. And the enemy destroyed their works and broke down the olive trees." Then Jesus comes back for the second coming and says, "What the hell happened here? Who did this?" Russell, where art thou? I heard thy voice and hid myself because the church fell. Who told thee to cause the church to fall? Hast thou partaken? Trump, what is thou doing here? I have been doing that which I did in the first term. Oh, okay. Oh my God. Joseph Smith spoke more on this in 19 July 1840. Oh my God. And of course Brigham Young was upset that he was exposed as Judas and refused to publish it. Joseph Smith should have done another Doctrine and Covenants edition after 1840's sermon. He really needed to do that. He knew from his Liberty Jail scriptures that there were false brethren in his church. He knew when he arrived at Nauvoo that there were fake Mormons with fake licenses. He knew. And so that's the one thing that I think he failed, is not getting another edition of the Doctrine and Covenants published with some of his new stuff, including his Liberty Jail scriptures, and getting his history, 1838 history, published in the Doctrine and Covenants. That would have been a game ender for Brigham Young. He'd have to figure out another way to forge documents and try to show that. Anyway, didn't happen. So we just have to wait for Mormons to be destroyed because of their ignorance. So yeah, this is pretty much it. This is what's happening. is that Utah supporters of Trump are actually not supporters of Trump. They are supporters of the Danite agenda to overthrow the federal government and have Utah be an independently run nation under the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And in case you're an ex-foe or a never-mo in the state of Utah, and you think that you'll be just fine, you need to know your enemy. The church is the enemy. And this is what they got planned when they succeed, finally. They're having some trouble with Trump, but nonetheless. Verily I say unto you, it shall come to pass that all those who shall gather unto the land of Zion shall be tithed of all their surplus properties, and shall observe this law, or get stopped. Or they shall not be found worthy to abide among you. Yeah, they wanted Trump to stop the DEI, the LGBTQIAPO+ in Utah. See, now in Utah, the pride flag is banned. They want to get rid of the homeless because the homeless aren't paying tithing. I told you, I warned you. I went undercover for 9 months in Gail Miller's concentration camp of hell of human trafficking, witnessing and reporting on the dead bodies falling everywhere. And their attempt to murder me. And you didn't believe. You're not taking this seriously, people. It's not just the cost of eggs that you can't afford anymore. Your life is slowly getting worse. It's not gonna get better. See, for me, I can't afford breakfast anymore. The cost of living is too much for me. My month's supply is now gone. And so I'm having to make adjustments because of the economic crisis we're in. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. You're not getting it. As we get economically ruined, we then are not found worthy to live in Utah. I mean, we're already not worthy because we're apostates. And he again tells us that it's not just for tithing. It's for the other laws. And one of those other laws is polygamy. And there's where Mormons will have their final test of loyalty. Will you give up your wife and your 11-year-old daughter to the living prophet of Jesus as you become a slave to the kingdom without a wife? Can you love the Lord enough to make that sacrifice? You'll be rewarded when you're dead. You are not understanding the bigger picture of what's happening and what's going to happen in the coming days. You think that the church is true, and you never bothered to run the test. You never studied your scriptures. And for that, the church got you. They set you up for failure. And now it's going to be too late. Because the military is coming. Delta Force going after Booth. That was brilliant. That well needed. And then they tanked after that. They murdered the psychologist. Good job, guys, finally. And then they brought in Cyndi Lauper, the lunatic psycho, to replace the psycho. You started off the show about science. And then you threw in a psychologist, and then you threw in the psychic hotline network with Cyndi Lauper. It was bad enough with Bones' Catholicism, or not Bones, Booth's Catholicism. That was enough to go against the science. And yet, so the moral of the story, you're all gonna die because you didn't listen to me.